To speak about the topic of ego death, we need to have an accurate understanding of what ego really is. Only when we clearly understand what we call the ego can we have the ability to let it die. Do you agree with Zoe on that? Before going any deeper, let's go through the major spiritual traditions. Define the ego. Hinduism says that the ego is a function of the mind, creating the illusion that we are an individual, separate from the whole. Buddhism says that the ego is an illusion of an independent self, born from ignorance, the ignorance of not recognizing one's true nature. Christian mysticism says that the ego is the old self, the part that lives apart from God, driven by desire, pride, and personal will. Taoism says that the ego is the mind that wants to control, to divide, and to interfere with nature, causing the loss of harmony with the Tao. Sufi Islam says that the ego is the lower self, always driven by desire, fear, and arrogance. Jewish Kabbalah says that the ego is the identification with the separate self, which makes human beings move away from Ein Sof, the infinite source of all existence. Just like water, in Korean it is called mul, in Italian it is l'acqua, in Hindi it is pano, and in Swedish it is vatten. As many languages as there are in the world, there are just as many ways to call water. But even though the names are different, the essence that all those words point to is still one. A transparent, colorless, odorless, and tasteless liquid, whose purpose for life remains unchanged. Water is the source of existence and growth. In the same way, the definitions of ego in different religions are not essentially different in nature. If we set aside all the layers of language, doctrines, and beliefs, we will realize that, in all spiritual traditions, the ego always points to one and the same inner phenomenon. The illusion that there is a me, separate from the whole, from God, from reality. More specifically, it is the subjective idea that I am this individual person. We identify the I with the body, with thoughts, with emotions, and with every movement in the mind. It is precisely this illusion of separation that gives birth to suffering, conflict, fear, and desire, for it keeps us in opposition to the rest of the universe. And that is also why, in every spiritual tradition, the dissolution of this illusion has always been seen as liberation, as salvation, as enlightenment, even though each path may call it by a different name. Whenever a thought, an emotion, or an inner voice arises within your mind, if, in that very moment, you become aware of it, you have already stepped out of the mind. You are no longer identified with what is happening inside. When awareness is present, the ego cannot form, because the ego only exists when there is identification between I and the content of the mind. But if you don't recognize what is going on within, you'll be carried away by the flow of thoughts and emotions, such as, I'm thinking about work ideas. I'm upset with my husband. I'm worried about my daughter's health. In those moments, you are fully identified with the mind, and the ego has already been born. Once the ego appears, your words and actions become unconscious. You may speak with anger and blame, your face tense, your energy is filled with irritation, your eyes are sharp, your breath is heavy, or you might slam the door and walk away. When you worry about your daughter, Your face reflects the restlessness inside, and when she meets that energy, she feels it, and her own anxiety grows stronger. But when you see what is happening in your mind, a space of awareness opens. You realize the mind is thinking about work, but that thought is not you. There is anger toward your husband, but that anger is not you. There is worry for your daughter, but that worry is not you. When you know that what happens in the mind is not you, you become the observer, the master of the mind. From that still space, your words and actions arise from awareness, not from the unconscious habits of the ego. That is the beginning of inner freedom, where you live without being controlled by the mind, and the light of awareness begins to shine through your whole life. In its essence, the death of the ego simply happens when we no longer identify ourselves with everything that arises within the inner world. In theory, it sounds so simple. We only need to recognize what is arising inside: a thought that suddenly appears, a feeling that flares up, a quiet voice whispering within the mind. Just by recognizing and separating from those movements, we have already touched inner freedom. We have already stepped into liberation. Conceptually, it is simple, but in reality, through thousands of years, humanity is still struggling. The human psyche is still caught in the whirlpool of ignorance, still restless, divided, filled with wars and suffering. Here are the deeper reasons why the death of the ego is so difficult to attain. The first reason: the ego is a loyal guard. The ego is not a foolish or meaningless enemy. It is a survival mechanism, evolved through millions of years, programmed to protect you from any possible threat. In its depths, the ego truly believes that if it does not control, if it does not judge, if it does not identify, then you will be hurt or even cease to exist. So when you begin to recognize and detach, it is like asking a watchman who has guarded all his life to put down his weapon and take a rest. He would not dare, for the instinct to guard within him is too strong. In the same way, the ego will fight to the very end to preserve its own existence. Reason 2. The matrix of the past and the future. The human mind is rarely in the present moment. It is trapped between the wounds of the past and the fears of a future that has not yet come. When you recognize an emotion like anger, you are not only seeing a moment of reaction, you are touching memories of old injustices and the quiet fear that they may happen again. So, detachment is not simply stepping away from one emotion. It is freeing yourself from the invisible web of time, a matrix woven from memories, worries, and recurring fears. Reason 3. The collusion of society and culture. Modern civilization is built upon feeding and strengthening the ego. Education teaches us to compare and compete. The economy urges us to assert our identity. The media keeps feeding fear and desire. Technology turns us outward, away from our inner being. So when you begin the journey of awakening, you are rowing upstream, while all of humanity drifts downstream with the ego. The chaos of the outer world is a vast projection of billions of restless inner worlds, people swept away by the same illusion of I. Reason 4. The residual energy within each person's psyche is different. Imagine your psyche as a flowing river. Normally, the water is clear, gentle, free, and pure. But over time, pieces of wood, stones, debris, symbolizing residual energy, begin to gather at the bottom of the river. They make the flow muddy, blocked, and filled with hidden whirlpools beneath the surface. In essence, residual energy is made of energy particles that have not yet been released, emotions, memories, and thoughts that have not been fully felt or completely transformed. They include the wounds, anger, and fears that have not yet been healed, the desires and obsessions that have not been fulfilled or let go of, the rigid beliefs and ideas we continue to cling to, and the repressed emotions born from painful experiences in the past. When a powerful or painful event happens, instead of letting the emotion pass naturally, we often suppress it, ignore it, or run away from it. For example, men must not cry. You have to be strong, don't be weak. On the other hand, sometimes we are completely swept away, letting the emotion control us and feed itself, like when we hold on to anger and nurture it into hatred. Both of these reactions prevent the energy from being released. Instead of dissolving, it becomes stuck in your energy body, turning into a block of residual energy, waiting to be seen and transformed. Every human being has different circumstances, experiences, and pasts. So, the amount of residual energy within each person's psyche is also different. Some carry heavy blocks of energy inside them, making their inner world full of struggle, restlessness, and pain. Others carry less residual energy, so their inner life is more peaceful, calm, and joyful. We can easily recognize this in everyday life. When you work, are you fully present? Or are you constantly pulled away by streams of thoughts and emotions? Your level of focus, peace, or restlessness is a reflection of the amount of residual energy in your psyche. Because the residual energy within each person is not the same. The spiritual path and methods of practice cannot be the same either. Many people, when they begin the path of awakening, want to witness or be aware of what is happening within. However, the residual energy inside is too great. Each time they turn inward, a wave of emotions, memories, and thoughts rushes up. They cannot keep up with these movements. And if they continue to observe by force of will, the practice becomes tense and meaningless. In such cases, they need proper guidance from those who have gone before, those who have walked through the process of purification and transformation of energy. On the other hand, for those who carry less residual energy, just a short time of turning inward allows their thoughts and emotions to naturally dissolve. And at that stage, they need deeper practices to continue evolving on their spiritual journey. And on this journey, the journey of dissolving all residual energies, so that you may gradually take mastery of your life and return to the peace within. I will walk with you, step by step. I am here to bring you something practical, something you can truly feel and experience, and to offer sincere support on your path of self-discovery. To help you understand more deeply about the journey, 26 days of healing inner wounds and awakening this infinite potential within, as well as the awakening path that I myself have walked through, I would like to gift you 3 special letters. They will help you see more clearly what this journey is. A journey that, perhaps, at some deeper level, is also your own. You can find these 3 letters in the description below. I am Zoe, and I look forward to seeing you in this meaningful and profound journey of healing. Thank you for being here in this very moment. See you in the next video. Bye.